Welcome to the Power of One. And this is part two for an amazing young lady who was sharing her story, Nicole. Nicole has been through so much in her life and losing her father to suicide, losing her uncle to a murder at the hands of her father. But she also lost her daughter when she was in college. So we're going to hear a little bit about that story and how it affected Nicole in just an unbelievable way. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Welcome. How are you?
Good. Nicole, tell me all about your amazing daughter. You have two daughters, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
and five boys.
And five boys. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to talk about Alexandria today. Is that right?
Okay. Yes.
Tell me all about your daughter.
So Alexandria was a fun-loving, my energetic youngest daughter. Um, she kept everybody laughing, very, very secure in who she was at times, and very insecure sometimes. She always was loud and just we called her moody because depending on her mood, that's how she acted. So, fun loving girl, just very adventurous, wanted to live her best life, live her life to the fullest, and that's what she did until her tragic end in 2017 when she got killed at her college when she was in a tragic accident. I'll say that.
Okay. So was she in a car accident or how did this this side of her life come to an end?
So they were celebrating probate, I believe they call it, on the campus. She went to a HBCU. She was in a single car crash. So it was in Ohio, in Xenia, Ohio. I will say that. And it was a lot. It was very tragic and unexpected because I had talked to her the night before. And so she called me like she always do when she's out. And she was like, Mommy, can you pray with me? And I was like, Moody, what you doing? She was like, nothing. I was like, Moody, what you doing? She's like, oh, we celebrating probate. And they were celebrating one of her friend's birthday. So Alex called me. She asked me for prayer, and she's like, "Can you pray for my friends?" I said, "How many of them is it?" She said, "Like 80." I said, "I'm not praying for 80 people. Put me on the list. Like, put me on the because she's like, "Can you give them a word, Mom? Can you give them a word?" So
Mhm.
I was like, "Put me on aux." So apparently she put me on aux, and I was like, "All right, everybody say I repent," because I didn't know what they were doing. And as a pastor, as a mom, when your child call and be like, "Can you pray for me?" Automatically, I'm like, "Let's repent." Because whatever y'all about to do or whatever y'all done did, let's go ahead and
Right.
ask God for forgiveness. So I
Right.
was like, all right, say, everybody say I repent. So all you heard was I repent, I repent, I repent. And then the Lord allowed me to pray with her. And I prayed with her from like 11:38 p.m. until 12:38 a.m.
Okay.
So I got off the phone with her and then I got a phone call at 1 o'clock. I went to sleep for an hour and I had a dream. And in the dream, I was sitting in between Alex and the driver. And she was like, bye, mommy, I love you. And I woke up to everybody calling me, letting me know I needed to hurry up and get to Ohio. They was like, Mama Nikki, you need to hurry up and get here. Alex was in a car accident. We don't know what happened. Click. And then I was getting calls back to back to back. So I proceeded to call my ex-husband, who was my husband at the time. And I had told her before I had got off the phone with her, don't go nowhere. Don't leave the campus. Because when I was praying, I felt something like I felt off. And I was like, don't leave. I don't care what happens. Don't leave the campus. I don't care what's going on. So apparently, her and some of her friends were being too loud on the campus, and the RD asked them to leave because they were being too loud. So, in the process of them leaving the campus intoxicated, someone made a 30 they made an 85 mile per hour U-turn in a 35 mile per hour zone, which was on a college campus, which I've never seen 35 miles per hour on a college campus. Let me just be clear. So they wound up hitting a gas pipeline, which flew up in the air, wrapped around a tree, and my daughter's body was amputated in the car crash. So in us traveling to Ohio, the details were they were about to take a friend to another college that was across the street from the college that she was at, which is another HBCU, because they were asked to leave campus by the RD, which they should have never been allowed to leave campus, especially after turning up, getting drunk, getting high, whatever you want to call it, in front of the campus police station. And so these
Say that
things,
again.
they were getting drunk and high in front of the campus police station, which is right by the dormitory where she lived at on the college campus.
And then they asked them to leave.
They asked them to leave because they were too loud. Apparently it's supposed to be a dry campus, but this is something that the colleges do, and all colleges do it, but this particular college in particular was allowing the kids to get drunk and high on the campus in front of the campus police station. It's a lot to take in.
Mm.
So in the process of them um allowing them to leave, like I said, the RD told them they had to go because they were being too loud. So
Now
they
break that
proceeded.
down because people probably don't know what an RD is.
A RD is a residential director, a
Okay.
residential for the campus. So like the person who takes care of your children when you send them to the colleges, who's in charge to have weekly meetings to let them know the do's and don'ts on campus, the ones who are supposed to check and inspect who's in the rooms and who's not in the rooms, the head person who also might attend to the school and or be staff at the school or at the college, who is supposed to make sure that your child, while staying in their care, is protected and covered while you're not there as a parent. That's supposedly their job.
Okay.
However, I was informed that that wasn't their responsibility, that they're not our children's parental guidance once we release them into this college atmosphere, which was very hard for me to take, especially after having to identify a 21-year-old with no feet on their body on a dry campus. So, you know, it's been very trying. My daughter turned 21 September 16th of 2017, and she was killed 10 days later, September 26th of 2017, and her body was amputated. So when we were called to come to Ohio, we identified her with no feet on her body. So identifying the 21-year-old that you sent to college whole in her junior year, and you come and she has to come back home in pieces, will change perspective. It's been a lot. It's been hard. It's been a hard 7 years, going on 8 years. We're just
I'm
trying to
sure.
process my daughter's death. Like I said, she was the youngest girl in our family. Um, it was a lot. It's a lot to process, especially when you have to go to a campus and then they have no answers or they hide stuff because they're
Mm.
trying to cover themselves, because accreditation was in the line of fire at the time that my daughter was killed. Different fraternities and sororities that were on the campus were turning up. And, you know, we send our children to colleges thinking that we're giving them this best experience so they can have this academic, you know,
Mhm.
excellence, and they can come out and they had this experience. But what about all the parents who lost children on
Mhm.
campuses? You
Mhm.
know, what about all the parents and their siblings who now have lost a family member, and now the parents are living in fear and stress and PTSD because they're
Mhm.
scared to send their other children. Um, they're scared to send their other children to colleges away from home because they don't know if their child is going to come back alive or dead.
Exactly. Now, I have two questions. We
Mhm,
don't name any names. One,
mhm,
so was your daughter driving? And if she was not, was the driver charged? Because you did indicate that they were drinking and getting high. So that means that if your daughter was not the driver, so the driver was driving under the influence, and that is a crime.
mhm,
And also, the drugs and alcohol was on campus. Was
Mm-hmm.
the drugs and alcohol purchased on campus? And did
Mm-hmm.
they find out who sold or gave the alcohol and drugs to your daughter and her friends? Were they charged?
They stopped reporting the issue on campus. Let me say this. They knew that the kids got drunk and high on the campus all the time, apparently. This was a regular thing. Every weekend, they would go and get drunk and high. They would make a drink called a tsunami where they mix all these different types of drinks that it turns blue and purple in a 5 gallon tote. And this is, I guess, for this particular campus, this is what they did on the weekends. And so they would get weed. They purchased the marijuana that had PCP and fentanyl from a fraternity president.
Do you know if your daughter knew that the marijuana had those things in it, or she was just taking marijuana?
They did not know that the marijuana had PCP and fentanyl in it. She was not the driver. Her best friend was the driver. One of her best friends, because it was a gang of them, a team of them that hung together. And one of them was the driver. And apparently everybody was under the influence, including my daughter. I'm not going to make it seem like she wasn't too.
Crazy.
Everybody was under the influence. And apparently the normal alcohol drug level is 0.08. However, the driver's blood alcohol level was way over that. And so she was prosecuted, apparently, but we still, until this day, don't know who really was the driver. Now, she did 11 months, and they called and asked me would I allow her early release because she wasn't in her right mind once she got into the accident, because all the girls were harmed in the accident. Everybody had like a real everybody had a difficulty. My daughter, her feet were amputated. Like she didn't have no face on her body. Her neck was split open. Her femur was out. Like her legs was broken. Rib cage was broken. Hand was broke. And only because I lifted the sheet to see that my daughter no longer had feet on her body and she was a dancer. So that's how I know, because I wanted to see her not having a face because of the Takata airbags, the metal shooting out of the airbags had eaten up her whole face. And so once you have seen something like that, it changes perspective. Like it gives you a whole different perspective on life. And when you go through things, it changes how you think about moving forward in life, period. Not only that, um, the mental part of it, not only for myself and my ex-husband, but for our other children, her siblings that are still alive and still affected by the decision when she left campus. And all of them left campus when they were instructed by the RD to leave campus. I have a problem with that. For
Of
them to
course.
only have thrown out the case and say, it's no longer our problem. Y'all figure it out.
So, how did it affect you, your ex husband, and her siblings? You know what I mean? Like, the thing that kind of upsets me is living in Philly and working with victims and co-homicide survivors. I don't forget people. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a one and done. So I try to
Mm-hmm.
just reach out to people just to say, listen, you're in my thoughts and my prayers. If I don't send anything else with that text, I just want you to know I'm thinking about you, because it's just to me not a news story.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like people just go right on with their lives if it's not personal and hits home.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people understand how it affects a mother or a father or a sister or a brother or other family members when they lose someone so tragically. How did it
Right.
affect you, Mom? How did it
So for
affect
me,
your other children?
so for my children, it affected everybody differently. And I really can't speak on all of them
Hmm.
because it's we don't talk about it, because as folk, we don't deal with those hard conversations. We kind of just keep it moving. And even for me, I think when it happened, I was still in shock, and the way everything transpired, it was like everything was moving so fast where I immediately went into, I got to get this done. I got to get
Mhm.
her buried. I got to get her body back to Philly. I have to take care of the necessary. I have to make sure everybody is paid for her services and, whatever's about to take place, where it was all a blur, like even to the point that I ministered my own daughter's funeral.
Did you?
And so in that, because everything, it was so many missing pieces, I didn't really think of the impact that it would have on my family until later on. Like now I'm watching and I'm like, I really didn't make good decisions.
Mm.
And had I did this differently, a lot of things, like I called the house when we found out it was her that was dead. um and I was like, your sister died. Like, it was no emotion there because I was just
Oh, you
trying
called
to,
your children.
I
You
called
when you
my
told.
children and I was like, y'all sister is dead. And I was like, for me, it was like a disconnect because I couldn't believe it because I was still in shock, even when
Uh,
we got there. And so everything happened so fast. It was so many missing pieces that when we got to Ohio, um, and we realized that was her. It was after we called the president for the school at the time. The president of the school, I called them because the kids was giving me the number because I couldn't figure out what was going on. Apparently, my oldest daughter had found an article on the news, and that's something that should never go down. Like if a child dies on a college campus, and this is for future, if a child dies on a college campus, please do not have the news report on no children dying until you reach the parent personally. Don't have the newscast say, oh, it was a tragic accident, somebody got killed. Don't even put that out there because you don't know what the parent's state of mind is in the process of them trying to get to the college. All the kids called me to let me know that it was my daughter, even to the point that the kids who were trying to get her out the car, they was like, I never seen anything like this. You need to hurry up and get here. So then I'm like, well, where's the phone numbers for the other parents? Because in my mind, I'm like, I just got to make sure everybody else knows that their children was in
mhm.
this accident as well. I don't know what took place. I didn't know who died yet. It wasn't
Right.
until we were 4 hours and 33 minutes into the drive that I found out that it was my daughter who was dead.
By an
And that was
article that your
after
oldest daughter pulled up.
my from the article my daughter had pulled up, and then I called the president of the school and I was like, hello, this is Nicole Austin-Hall. Can you tell me what's going on with my daughter, Alexandria Austin? And he was like, let me step away from the kids. And when he said that, my heart dropped. We were still driving on the expressway near a Sunoco truck. And so I had him on speaker. So when he told me, I'm sorry, your daughter is dead, we almost ran into the Sunoco truck because my husband at the time was like, what do you mean? So, because we didn't have the correct information and nobody had enough respect to call the parents first before they put it out on the news in Ohio, it was very disrespectful. It was very,
How did
very
it affect
disrespectful.
you? How did it affect your health after the service? After
Right.
you did the eulogy, how did it affect your health?
So health wise for me is because I had undiagnosed trauma, and because I didn't understand what was going on for me, even though I knew something was going to I had, God gave me that. I'm a pastor. So when I say God, it's something about the power of prayer. And when you have a relationship with the Lord or a higher power, for those who don't believe in God or Jesus, for me, it's Jesus all day long.
Right.
And for whatever reason, um, he gave me a sense of peace at the time that it happened. However, because I was so brokenhearted that my baby girl had died and that our family was already disrupted and disturbed because so many things were going on. Now this was a missing piece that who would have thought my child would have died. And this is not our first child that died, but this is now our second child that has died out of eight. um it affected me to the point that I never processed it. I never talked about it. I just held it in, where I had 15 strokes and 2 brain surgeries, since, because of undiagnosed trauma, undiagnosed PTSD, undiagnosed processing mental health stuff, living in trauma and crisis, always living in crisis, always wondering what's going to happen next. Is something else going to happen? You know, not being able to verbalize and or get the necessary help because of how I look skin wise. Um, just not being able to really process that, and then trying to handle a divorce, 7 kids, now 6 children, living in at the time, a suburban community with 5 African American boys who had their own mental health issues, their own trauma. I have a son with autism. Trying to process all of that allowed me to be in the hospital from March of 2019 until August of 2019 on my back.
Mm.
And I tell people, like, make sure you take care of your mental health, because if you don't process it, it will affect you. Not only will it affect you, but you laying in a bed at a rehab facility waiting for somebody to come change poop and pee off of you after 45 minutes will change perspective. Or better yet, you having a tube hang out your head because your brain is swelled up from an infection from a from a dirty surgical tool, and because you're not a doctor, or they feel as though that you're not qualified because you don't hold a degree, but you're telling them something is wrong, will change perspective. When you have to get a whole side of your head, on this right side of my head, it's a hole. The hole is as big as my hand, is this big right here, of what they had to take out of my skull from undiagnosed PTSD and trauma from my daughter dying, on top of everything else that was happening in my life at this time. And as I look back post 5 years, the stroke, thank God I'm still alive, and then just having to go through what I went through with my dad and my uncle, it's a lot to process. It's a lot to process.
It is. It is. Yeah. And you've recently had 2 other lost. Are you
Yeah.
taking care of yourself mentally now?
Yes, I am. Every chance I get, I am. I um I so I document on Facebook a lot. Let me say this. Me preaching my daughter's funeral was on Facebook. Me
Mm,
ministering about my dad in the situation with my uncle is on Facebook. And the reason why I do this is to help other people who
mhm,
might go through similar situations and not know what to do. The plan, the planning of her funeral was so emotionally draining for our family that we don't talk about stuff like that. We don't talk about getting our stuff in order. And again, we go back to, we don't talk about getting our things in order. And we have to have these conversations. Preparing our children for life outside of mom and dad's house is something that we don't talk about. Preparing them that just in case something happens, this is what needs to take place. My daughter being in a car accident on her campus um, did something to me that I did not think would take me to the point of me laying in the bed being angry at the world. And I realized when I had the strokes and I had the brain surgery, as God showed me in a dream, that I was angry at the world. And He told me, if you don't unharden your heart and forgive, to the point that I had to forgive the girls who was in the car accident. I had to forgive the people on campus who witnessed the car accident. And I'm still working on that, because every time September 16th comes, September 26th, October 7th, and October 10th, comes up, my body automatically goes into a trauma response. It automatically goes into crisis. September and October, I feel like they can just throw it all away. You know,
mm,
when that initial week comes up, even now, my body still goes into crisis mode where my whole system will shut down, and we don't talk about that. My whole body tenses up. My family, it's an emotional time. The holidays are not the same. That year of
Mhm.
the first, I said it, I'm going to write a book. That year of the first, when you no longer have that family member that is the lively one, or you no longer have that person that's there that you can just call and say, hey, bust it up with. It
Mhm.
changes perspective. It changes the
Mhm.
dynamic of the family. When celebrations that used to be a celebration are now, you're so anxious, the anxiety levels that come in because those people are no longer there. It creates a sense of loss, that feeling of I don't know what to do because my life no longer looks like what I thought it should look like.
Mhm.
Creates a sense of friction and chaos in your body if it's not processed properly.
I want to thank you so much for sharing your story, which I know is hard. But like you said, we have to have those hard conversations, and these hard conversations will help so many families. So, again, I thank you. I am praying for you, and we are forever connected. I will be
Amen.
checking on you for as long as you will allow me to.
Amen.
But I thank you so much, and I will be praying for you and your family.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Mothers and fathers, I'm going to ask you to always check on your children. I've never been one of what society says, and oh, society says you're a mama's boy, you're a daddy's girl, and that's a bad. No, check on your children and make sure that they are okay. Not saying that bad stuff happens to families who do not check on their children. That's not what I'm saying. But we have to make sure that our children are okay. And for those who are on the college campus, please make sure you love on those babies like you love on your own children. We do not want to lose another child on a college campus. Protect those children like you will protect your own. Peace and love.